if you're paying your owner-operators through revenue settlements inside of Truckwin, you will be able to automatically print your 1099s for each of your owner-operators, or if any of your carriers need a 1099, you'll be able to produce that as well, and I will show you how. So in revenue settlements, I always recommend to first run a tax report just so you have some numbers to compare the 1099 totals to. So I suggest you go into settlement report, put in your dates, which would be the entire year that you're working with, and hit match, because that's going to pull everyone that you've paid for that year. And there's an option, this first option here says print tax summary totals by lesser. So I'm going to check that, hit match again, and I'm going to hit print settlement. I'll change that to reflect the end of the year. And for each person that you have set up in Truckwin with a yes to receive a 1099, it'll print a nice little report like this. And the revenue items, what's listed up here, your total revenue, this is what your 1099 should be, because your 1099 is to reflect the agreed upon compensation for services, which would be the revenue. Any deductions or reimbursements would be at the bottom, which would reflect in net pay but are not part of a 1099. So I would suggest printing this out, and we'll just kind of keep in memory that this guy, for All Pro, it says $1,300 is what his 1099 should be. So I'm going to hit exit. Once I've done that, if you go to utilities, there's a utility called Calculate Enter 1099 Adjustments. This is where I can go to see totals before I actually print out my 1099 to the form. It's going to default in the current year, and there is an option to only show net 1099 amounts, which is $600, and you hit the button that says Find 1099 Amounts. So it's going to go through and calculate everyone that's marked yes for 1099. It's getting their yearly wages. And so here's my All Pro carriers that did come up and say $1,300. So my net 1099 matches what my tax report says. So I would know I'm good to go ahead and print this 1099. Let's say, for example, the payment total came up as $1,200. And I know it's supposed to be $1,300, so maybe I made a mistake while I was processing some of his pay, like I marked something yes or no for 1099 I shouldn't have. This adjustment factor, you can go ahead and use this to adjust the net 1099 amount. So for example, let's say it was supposed to be $1,200. That's what my report said. I can type in -100. Hit enter, and it's going to recalculate my 1099. So that way when I print my 1099, it's going to match that tax report that I ran. So I'm going to leave that as 0 for right now because it's correct. And I'm going to go ahead and do save. To print my 1099, I would go up to reports, and you'll see annual 1099 reports. Again, it'll default to the current year, and you simply hit continue. And it's going to go through and calculate. So this is what's going to go ahead and print on the form for you. You would simply hit print 1099 and you would be done. And this you would want to write down. This is the total amount. In my case, I only have one, so it's the same. But this would be the total amount that you are going to need to write into your Form 1096 that you file. So I'm going to hit OK. And that's how you would print your 1099s.